Hello everyone, this is Ellie, the host of Artists with Anxiety, and I am here with Felicia DeRosa.
Hello.
So I will let you introduce yourself, so tell me what kind of a creative are you, whether you're a painter, musician, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, my name is Felicia DeRosa. I am predominantly a visual artist, and I work mostly in paints and in acrylics. So I do a lot of figurative representational work. That has been my focus for the majority of my art career. In recent years, I have been doing small sculpture and installation. It's sort of like I'm painting space, or I'm painting the room. And I kind of like looking at it that way because I like to introduce elements that are painting on the wall, painting on the floor, but also arrangement of objects that I take the time to build myself. So there's some object making. You mentioned music. I'm a failed musician. I am. I did up until I got into undergrad. Halfway through undergrad, I was also simultaneously studying percussion and voice at the Blueberry School of American Music.
Oh, that's awesome.
I had this grand idea that I was going to become, famous rock star, like most people have. And ultimately, I'm like, I just need to paint more. Mm-hmm. So I downshifted that. That's why there's guitars and things hanging up in my life. There's a ukulele at home. And I used to have a drum kit, but I sold it for rent one time.
Yeah, that's kind of important, unfortunately.
It is. You can't. It's hard to be living on the street and having a 10-piece drum kit to drag around.
Mm-hmm. Some people do it. I don't know how, but it's not the life for me anyway. So. Again, answer whatever you're comfortable with, but what kind of mental health issues are you struggling with?
So I have an interesting bit of soup there. I had trigger warnings all around, for this sort of thing. I was unfortunately abused pretty hard growing up. I am a survivor of sexual assault and molestation. Had a lot of unfortunate experiences in my growing up experience that kind of went through maybe second year of college before I was able to finally get rid of the elements in my life that were causing me harm. So I deal with post-traumatic stress. That's something that is very real for me that I have been seeing therapy for. Mm-hmm. I have... and then I obviously have gender dysphoria. I had a very bad case of gender dysphoria that I lived with for quite a long time, out of fear of losing my whole life and ending up dead. Because at the time frame when I was first looking at the idea of transitioning, that was a much more common reality than what is now. Now if you're a trans person, things are... I'm not going to say good per se, but compared to how they were 20 years ago, leaps and bounds better. Mm-hmm. Much more improved. There's proper language. There's real medical care available. A lot of the struggle feels like it's mostly socio-political, and where there's a lot of room for improvement with the medical side of it, it's absolutely better than it was. It's safer. Mm-hmm. And the kind of medications they use are more commonly bioidentical, which means that it's more akin to what would naturally happen in your body as opposed to some sort of synthesized derivative, which actually has problematic for a lot of reasons, including side effects and what have you.
Okay.
With it, I am also OCD, dyslexic, and a rapid cycling bipolar 1.
Okay.
So I have a little bit. I have some challenges that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And unfortunately, that then creates anxiety, and so I have anxiety as a result of the other things that I already have.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
And to add, the cherry on top of everything. But...
Basically, it's like, I'm having a panic attack. Okay, I'm going to go somewhere away from everything. I'll be back.
Anywhere.
Anywhere. That is it at this moment. Thank you.
So then how do you create when you're still battling these issues? What kind of steps... Forgive me. What kind of steps do you take to work through that?
So I've always used my art as therapy for myself. Never specifically or formally studied art therapy as a practice, but I have read enough and learned enough to understand its implications as a therapeutic practice.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I'm dealing, whatever kind of anxiety I have, I can talk about it in a painting, either through the technique that I use or through subjects. As far as the abuse stuff or the PTSD, I definitely have processed a lot of the experiences that I've had that still kind of haunt me through themes in my painting and certain styles of work. These birds that I have on the floor here actually deal directly with. I was on medication for bipolar disorder and the other things, really only for 4.5 or 5 years of my life. They in many ways made me sicker and less able to function, and I made a conscious decision that medication wasn't for me. Now, I don't want to offend anyone who does take medication. There is value in it, and if that is something that a person feels is helping them and that they want to have in order to have a better quality of life, I say go for it. It just wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to lean on my art practice as my medication, as my therapy, because that was what I had available to me. And I functioned very well like that for quite some time. Obviously, I would still be cycling. When you're a rapid cycler, you can go through 2-3 stages of mania and a couple of stages of depression a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes it could stretch out to a few days or stretch out to a week. I felt like I was all over the place for a lot of it. But I would use, when I was feeling manic, would be when I would get things done. And I would go into the studio for 16 hours and produce 6-7 paintings.
Wow.
And then if I was getting depressed or not that I could function, that might be when I work on sketches. That might be when I think I diary out some of what I'm feeling and see if there is something I can extract for an art series or a painting or installation or something like that. So depression was where I would tick off a to-do list. I'm like, things that I need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
A, B, C, D, E. And rather than staying at home and spiral and wallow, which is what I have a tendency to do, I would get my list and go, I have to do this. So I would focus on that, and I would get it done, cross it off, and do the next thing. And in the process of just focusing on the list, I'm not allowing myself to get sucked into the depression, not allowing myself to potentially get into harm's way, and I'm getting out of the house.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then by the time I get to the end of that list, the depression, because of the way that cycles work for me, starts to cycle out of it, and I'm going in a different direction. I've gotten through this little dark period without doing any damage to myself, and still being productive in my life and getting to this next stage. So that would be like sort of like a planning and organizational time that would lead into a production time that would be related with my mania.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of physical activities, so I go to the gym. And that was how I would take the edge off of the mania, because I would get intensely manic, and I had periods of times where I would black out and lose time, wake up, it's 3 days later, I'm in a different city, I'm in someone's house, I don't know how I got there, scary crap that happened when I would get so out there in my mania that I just didn't remember what was going on. Come home, find out my bank account is empty, and I have no idea what happened, and it's a lot of really difficult stuff to live with. So keeping myself focused on my art practice and my art career is what kept me out of trouble with my cycling, but also made me just viciously productive. Like I in a span between 2003 and 2007, I painted well over 600 paintings.
Oh my god, that's awesome, and also a little terrifying.
And I will paint all of these paintings. And it was cool because I was able to participate in all the group shows. I had an average month I would participate in some form of art exhibition, uh, anywhere between like 12 and 16 shows in a month.
Wow.
Because I would just spread it out everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept producing. This is how I'm going to deal with my mental illnesses. I'm just going to produce the crap out of my work and process and get it out of my system so that I can sleep and so that I can have some sense of calm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that's what I was always striving for, was a sense of even keel.
Mm-hmm.
When you're bipolar, that's the sweet spot you're trying to get to, because you're either very up and manic, and I can't tell you how many times people assumed I was on speed or meth or some kind of drug,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, sorry, this is actually just how I am. I was self-medicating through my art practice instead of self-medicating through, say, drugs or alcohol, which could have easily been something I got into, and it was readily available. And yeah, I'll be honest with you, it works. Even now, if I cycle into a pretty hard mania, I might have an edible.
Mm-hmm.
I might have a little CBD oil. It hasn't really worked much for me. I tried it a couple times, but it will take the edge off and slow me down, just enough to where I don't feel like I'm going to go spiraling out of control.
Right.
Which is good. don't want to do that.
No.
So I think that's probably the best way, is like diet and exercise, sure, because that helps you take the edge off of mania. If my lows were usually aggressive and angry, more than they were sad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm going to go to the bar and I'm going to pick a fight with someone and get my ass kicked. That'd be a good time. Maybe not, right? So instead of doing that, I will accomplish my goal list, you know. And my OCD, I think, actually helped me maintain a schedule by turning good habits into ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Because once it's a ritual, I can't not do it anymore.
Right.
I have to do it. I'm compelled to do it. And my OCD is controlled by making art. And I couldn't really tell you why. I think because making art organizes my brain, and I just feel everything feels like ordered because I operate from a place of chaos. And the OCD wants me to line up all the lines of everything. Like, you can see remnants of it. This table that stuff is on is lined up parallel to the lines in the floor. It can't be perpendicular. It has to be parallel. And I know it's parallel because I know this is the front of it, not the side of it.
Mm.
I can't turn the table the other way because then it's going perpendicular, and I don't want that. And if it does go perpendicular, it has to be perfectly perpendicular, like 90-degree corners.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you know,
Yeah.
I have a thing that is everything is in either derivatives of 3s or derivatives of 5. Don't know why especially, but that's what I fixated on. So I have these little numeric things that I have. The longer I go without making art, the more the OCD takes over my everyday life, and the more difficult it becomes to actually get out of the house. So that encourages me to stay productive, because as long as I'm productive in my art, my OCD is controlled and doesn't infiltrate and adversely affect my out of studio life.
Right.
And my bipolar disorder is kept in check by producing work and staying active. So they all kind of work hand in hand. But I will throw this in as an interesting additive. So I started my transition in 2016. So I had gotten diagnosed with all of this stuff while I was still in college, so longer ago in 2016. And I had a very interesting experience of, within a week of starting HRT, I just went even keel. Like, I'm not saying that it cured my bipolar disorder, but it put it on mute.
Huh.
And if you want to look at it in a visual sense, if you can imagine a tornado, when you're bipolar, you're constantly swirling around. You're either swirling around manic or swirling around in a depressive, so you're either going up You're either spinning up or you're spinning down. That even keel that is our sweet spot where I'm not manic today, I'm also not depressed. Sometimes you can be numb and feel absolutely nothing, and sometimes you just feel like you're centered. And it's precarious because any moment you spin off into a manic or spin off into depression, something about being on HRT has kept me in the eye of the storm all the time. I still have my cycle. I actually spiraled down yesterday, but it's so subtle in comparison to what I'm used to that I didn't realize how big of a difference it was until I recently had a medical procedure done, and I had to stop taking all my medication, including my HRT, for 2 weeks. And I cycled into probably the worst manic episode that I could remember having. It was terrible, and I forgot how intense my bipolar disorder really was because for 3 years I wasn't having that level of experience anymore.
Right.
It's sort of like we're having this conversation now, and there's nothing else in here, and I can focus on you. There's the two of us talking. I talk, you talk.
Yeah.
With full-blown bipolar disorder, like going unchecked, we're having this talking conversation in a densely packed train station where everyone's screaming.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really trying to focus on what you're saying, but there's 1,000 other voices going on. And I'm like, that's how I describe rapid thinking.
Right.
So yeah, that was a heck of an experience for sure, and I'm glad that I've gotten back to this little bubble that I'm in.
So you answered a couple of my other questions. So how long did it take you to get to that a point of, I don't want to say normalcy, but that's the closest word I can think of right now.
No, I know what you mean. To employ, let's say, functionality.
Yes, that's the word.
When when I first got diagnosed, it was bad. I was on a really bad cocktail of medication. Bad by today's standards, considering the type of medication they have available now. They were very detrimental to my physical well-being and health. My primary care doctor said, at the rate that you're going, you're doing the same level of damage to your liver as if you were drinking a fifth of alcohol a day. And you should be looking at something alternative to help you. It's like he posed the question, do you want to be normal and dead before 50? Or do you want to find a different way to manage your bipolar disorder? And maybe that was a harsh way to put it. Maybe that wasn't best practice for a medical professional, but for me, I'm a very direct, pragmatic individual. That's exactly how to talk to me. For me to
It's a wake-up call.
And it's a wake-up call. And I'm like, okay, I thought I was doing myself good by doing this. Apparently this is harming me, so what else can I do? So I stopped taking the meds, and I went into an outpatient clinic that was for, it was for a group of people. I was in it. There were people with severe OCD, people who were, they had like serious drug addiction problems that they were dealing with, people who were schizophrenic or paranoid. It was just a blend of people, and the idea was that you would go. It was intense. It was every single day for 3 months, for an hour, and it was them teaching you mindfulness and self-management. So all of these positive coping skills. It was an intensive course, and I was very fortunate I got to do that because I came out of it. That's when I learned how to maintain a regimen, how to maintain a schedule, how to, like, when I'm feeling too high, I'm going to do this, and when I'm feeling too low, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to turn my OCD from a negative to a positive and use it to help me maintain these healthy practices and turn them into a ritual so that I always do them and then I can always function. And I did very, very well. I functioned very well. It was always a sense of constantly clenching, like really holding everything together, and I would have to count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi before I would start a new thought, because I speak and run on sentences, and I think far faster than my body moves or how I speak. So I had to learn how to very manually slower, even if my brain was zooming at 1,000,000 miles an hour, to not appear like I was. But I always had that, you look in my eyes and there's clearly a tornado going on. And I'm like, yes, I am calm and collected. Yeah. And then go home and go, that's okay, no one saw me, I'm good.
Yeah, we're fine, so everything's fine.
Yeah.
That reminds me of that, have you seen the Disney movie Hercules? And I'll probably get in trouble for this on YouTube. But when he's screaming and then he like smooths his fire hair out, it's cool, I'm fine, I'm calm now.
It is exactly like that. It is exactly like that, and Hades is my all-time favorite villain.
I love Hades.
I love Hades. He gets real angry, his hair goes, he's like, oh.
No, I'm good now. I feel that.
Or it's like when you go, oh, my hair out.
Yeah. Perfect, brilliant, I love it. So you talked about a lot of your coping mechanisms. Do you have like a self-care routine?
Yeah. If I need to refill the tank, I go gallery hopping, I go museum hopping, and I feed myself.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I've been a professional artist for 35 years of my life. I started showing professionally when I was 12.
Wow.
It's really all I know in my life. It's all I know. So it is my life. It's not what I do, right? It's just what I am. So I will go to a museum and I will appreciate works on the surface, like, ooh, art piece, and how do I feel about it? And then I'll look at it from the intellectual and I start dissecting it. Like, what were they trying to say? Did they say it clearly? How was their execution? And then I'm looking at brushstroke, or I'm looking at how they hammered something, or how they tooled it, or whatever it was that they're doing. And that's the way that my head is just, it takes it in as a whole, and then it breaks it apart to its base components, and then throws it back together.
Mm-hmm.
And that practice is self-soothing.
Yeah.
Music is a great way to self-soothe. I am never without headphones. My phone is loaded up with, right now, an entire analog of goth metal.
Yes.
Because I love it so much. So I'm just like, I'm calm and chill, but like 5 minutes before, I was like, and it sounds like people throwing, motorcycles into jet engines. And like, yes, I love this music so much, and someone just screaming like a banshee on fire. It's perfect.
Oh, I love it.
And it's just like, and then I come off and I go, That's like, little cute little me, I'm like, in my headphones. Yes.
I love it. Oh my god, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's how I maintain my aura of calm and sane and composure.
I love it though. It's fantastic. So you've basically nailed, without any kind of barely any like guidance, you've nailed all my questions. So
I have a habit of just like, and
that's
it's
not
like
a problem.
it's like you go up behind me and you like take the leash off and go, and I'm like, come back. All right, we're done.
Well, you're a speaker. That's what you do. This is your almost your element. So I greatly appreciate you taking the time. So where can we find more about you? Do you have like a website, Instagram, all that?
I have all of those things. No, really. You can find me on Instagram under Felicia DeRosa, and no spaces or underscores, just Felicia DeRosa. Mm-hmm. Same for Facebook.
Links. Yeah.
Yes, I can send you an email with links.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have your email, so I have to send
Yep.
But I have a website that I haven't updated in a minute, and I need to. And it's mostly because I haven't been able to photograph my current paintings in a way that makes me happy. So out of frustration, I've just sort of not.
You kind of see back here a new piece.
So I need to do that. I need to update my website. But my website is DeRosaArt.com. So it's my last name, DeRosaArt.com.
Okay.
And that's where you can see like the work that I have been doing going all the way back to 2003, which is when I felt I left the student phase and got into the journeyman process of being an artist. Like there's this period of time where you are absorbing and you are the sponge and you learn and you mimic and you try things and you do a little this, and you do a little of that, and then one day when you're not expecting it, the universe comes up behind you and goes, paf, in the back of your head, and you go, oh, I figured something out. And you've got your voice as an artist, and you're like, here it is. And that's when you step away from the student, and now you are like, okay, now I know what my voice is, I'm going to craft it and fine-tune it, and you're on that journey. And I probably arrived at a master level around the time that I started going to the grad program. And that's not me dubbing myself, that is things that people have said. I've been described as a master painter.
Wow.
And I take a lot of pride in that.
Absolutely.
You paint for 30 years, if you haven't gotten good at it in 30 years, you should probably consider becoming a dentist.
Yeah.
Something else other than painting.
Yes.
And I do take a lot of pride in the work that I do. It is an expression of love, and it is every bit like my sweat and blood in all the work that I do. Which I try to have it be because art for me is communication, and it's the perfect form of communication because it doesn't require anything from the other person other than taking it in and letting it affect you somehow.
Yeah.
It transcends language, it transcends age, ableness, gender, orientation, cultural identities, racial identities, whether or not you speak the same language. It communicates on such a visceral, primal level that, in my opinion, it is the top of the food chain of communication styles. And culturally, we are taught that if we go into an art exhibit, that you're just supposed to experience the art. We instinctually drop our walls, we drop out whatever preconceptions we have about a topic, and this is a perfect platform for an artist to interject a new idea, an opinion, a concept, a theme. And if you do it in such a way, like I try to do it conversationally, so when you walk into a show of mine, there's like a conversation started a little bit before you got there. You came in late on the conversation. So whatever you've got in your head, you are catching up through your own fill in the blank until you're at that same point of the conversation. And then you're in the conversation and you leave, but the conversation is still going on. So you weren't there for the end of the conversation. So you have to come to your own conclusions. This makes you part of the artistic process, and the art becomes part of you. And in that way, it changes the viewer. And it allows for a connection and communication between art piece and viewer, and artist and viewer, and then artist and art piece while we're putting it together. So for me it acts as activism and advocacy, because if you think about all the things in art history that have turned the tide and changed people's minds, I mean, most recently was the poster that was done for Barack Obama. I believe that really helped him get elected. Was an art piece.
Yes, it was.
Right? There was, I mean, if you go back really far in the beginning of the United States history, before we were the United States and we were these colonies, they were talking about uniting, there was a cartoonist that did a snake that was cut into pieces, and it said, united we live and divided we die. Yeah. And it was a visual that people could get behind. They don't have to read, but they can understand this. A snake in pieces is dead, a snake together is living. Right? And that's what art can do. It can change. I mean, think about Dante or think about Michelangelo. These are artists that did such profound work. They actually changed the way people view one of the top 3 largest religions in the world. Yeah, absolutely. Because when people think of Christianity, and especially some of the older versions of Christianity, the image pops in your head, and it could be Leonardo da Vinci, it could be Michelangelo, and some of our ideas of what we think heaven and hell might be like are directly derivative of the writings of Dante. And I think that, first of all, that's just mind-blowing achievement as from the realm of the arts. But it really does show you what communication can do. Big fan.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you welcoming me into your studio.
Yes, the Inner Sanctum. Welcome.
So So then my disclaimer, like normal, is that if you are feeling any sort of depression, anxiety, and just not feeling right anymore, please feel free to reach out to either a trusted adult, a licensed or certified professional, whether talk to your doctor about medication if you think it's right for you. And I always advocate for seeing a therapist or I'm blanking on the words now. I haven't done this in a while.
See a therapist, see a counselor.
That's the word, yes.
If you're in any level of schooling up through high school, you've always got the counselors on campus that you can reach out to if you're having crisis. There are crisis hotlines you can call 24 hours a day from wherever you are. Trusted friends that know what you're working with and you feel safe with if you need to just talk through or have someone there to either sit with you or if your thing is being held, then being held. I like to be held.
I like hugs,
Yeah. Just know what your community is and find a way to be safe and try to keep yourself away from things that potentially could inflame or aggravate if you're having a specific episode. If I'm spiraling down, the last thing I do, for example, is go into bed. I have to leave the house and then I can deal better. If I give in and go into bed, then I'm
game over.
Game over, basically. And then, so I'm on Instagram at Felicia DeRosa, www.derosaart.com. I Snapchat as Felicia DeRosa. I'm also on TikTok as Felicia Mercoletti. Facebook, Felicia DeRosa, and you can also look up DeRosa Art on Facebook. I have an art page there. I think I'm also on Tumblr.
Oh, yeah.
I get it.
No kidding, seriously. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. I know I sure did. So hopefully you'll stick around for the next episode. I got a lot of new guests coming up for you that I think you'll enjoy. As usual, like and subscribe. The lovely buttons below. Feel free to comment. Let me know. And give some love to Felicia, please, because she absolutely deserves it. So thank you guys very much. And I'm glad you joined us. And hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Thank you.